All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fourth and final segment, which is going to be about some general news stories around the league that I did want to touch upon. I probably couldn't talk about these things for a full segment, but overall together, I did want to touch upon them. So, the first thing we have to talk about is, of course, the biggest story going on in baseball right now, the Shohei Ohtani translator situation. So, I want to start off by saying, first of all, I didn't make a full segment on this because I think it's more of a baseball-related story than a baseball story. I think it's more of a legal situation, and I'm not a law expert, as you can probably tell. I host a baseball podcast. I don't host a law podcast, so I'm not entirely sure what the entire parameters of the situation are. So I didn't want to kind of talk about an ongoing legal situation that is very serious without while making claims that I really don't know about. So I did want to touch upon it because it is huge baseball-related news, but that is why I didn't do a full segment on it because, again, I don't really know what I'm talking about when it comes to law or illegal gambling rings, so that's really the entire reason. So basically, news broke, just to explain what happened, news broke last night that Shohei Ohtani's longtime translator, Ippei, who he is known to be really good friends with, that is something that is publicly known, was stealing from him for an excess of $4.5 million and putting it into illegal gambling rings and trying to pay off and having a very high debt as well. That is what we first heard the story was. Then we heard more about it, saying that the Dodgers knew about it and had fired him already, which is true. He has been fired. Ohtani now is a new translator. And we knew that ESPN had heard of the story before us and reached out to him and talked about him in the story, in the interview last night before today's game. He said that it was all his fault. He had a very bad gambling problem, and Shohei paid his debt. Then he said he said that statement was false and Shohei had nothing to do with it, and that Ohtani's lawyers had stepped in then, saying that Ohtani was the victim of a crime of Ippei stealing from him to pay off his gambling debt or gamble more. I'm not sure which one it really was. Now, there's a lot of people have been speculating as how could a professional translator get up to a gambling debt of $4.5 million. That's something that is interesting. Also, I would say that's a fair point. They're saying, why did he first say Ohtani was involved? Then Ohtani's lawyer said he wasn't. There's something fishy going on there. A lot of people think Ohtani's actually the one who has a gambling problem and that Ippei was just the fall guy, kind of a Michael Jordan situation. I think that's just trying to be a conspiracy theorist when there's no conspiracy going on. But, people want something to talk about. I understand. Now, my personal view of the outside of it is that Ippei told his good friend Shohei Ohtani that he had a very bad gambling problem, he had a very bad gambling debt, and that he asked Shohei to pay off the debt because Shohei has a lot of money, considering he is the best player in baseball. Shohei agreed, paid off his debt. His lawyers then found out and told him that was not a very smart thing to do, paying off an illegal gambling debt in illegal gambling rings, and then try to spin the story to something else so he wouldn't be involved in a legal situation. Now, that is my personal thoughts, but again, I don't know enough about it, but just judging off of what happened, being a logical thinker in my opinion, that is what I have gathered from it. But again, we're going to learn more about this in the coming days and weeks, so it's a very fluid situation. But just going on the actual baseball effect of it, I do think this is sort of a big effect for Ohtani. Ippei is a guy that we've known very publicly. Ohtani is very good friends with, a guy that he came over from Japan with. Two guys that are very good friends, go everywhere together, talking always in the dugout. Ippei actually resigned when MLB went on strike because he wasn't allowed to talk to Ohtani. Being a employee of the team, you're not allowed to talk to players, so he resigned just so he could talk to Shohei. So obviously this is if Ippei did end up stealing from him and Ohtani was a clueless victim, I think this is a big blow to Ohtani, not really being able to trust one of your closest friends, a guy you came up with, a guy you put a lot of trust in to be your translator, to be a big part of your career. So I think that would be a big thing there. Could it affect his play on the field? I don't think so, but I think in the clubhouse you don't have a guy you're comfortable translating for you now. That's the way you talk to your teammates, so that's something else. He is getting a new translator, yes, but he had a very close connection to the other one, so I'm not sure how that will ultimately affect him going into the season. So I think you have to look at it that way, but again, it's a very fluid situation. and we don't know what's going to happen. I'll keep updating this as it goes on, probably in this fourth segment. But if any other notable things happen, I will let you know. But that's really what my gauge on it is right now. But again, I'm not a law expert. I don't know a lot about illegal gambling rings. I don't gamble myself, so I couldn't tell you the real story going on, and I don't think it's my place to talk about it anyways. So I did want to touch upon that for a good amount of minutes because it is a very notable baseball story that is baseball related, but maybe isn't actually a big baseball related, but a big thing happening on the field. So next we have some actual baseball news, which we'll get to now. Jordan Wicks and Javier Assad have made the Cubs rotation, being the 4 and 5 starters, pushing veteran Drew Smyly to the bullpen. Smyly has 1 year left on his 2-year contract. I think he's a really good veteran pitcher, but I agree with the Cubs thinking here. Jordan Wicks and Javier Assad are both good young players that show a lot of potential, and I'd much rather have that than a guy who is going to be a veteran. Drew Smyly usually has a high 4 ERA. A fine pitcher, a fine guy out of the bullpen that I definitely think will provide some depth for this Cubs team, but I'm always up to the belief of give younger guys a shot, see what they can do. If they fail, they fail, and if they do well, you have a guy to bring for the future. Jordan Wicks, I'm very high on. I love his curveball. I think he was a great first-round pick by the Cubs a few years ago. I think Javier Assad has a lot of potential as well. So overall, I think this is a great decision by the Cubs. And again, I'm always a fan of younger players getting the job over veteran guys. Next, we have Alex Marsh. He also won the 5th starting spot in the Royals rotation, beating out guys like Jordan Lyles and Daniel Lynch. Jordan Lyles moved to the bullpen now. So another good job by the Royals. The 25-year-old who was a second-round pick, I think has some amount of potential for the Royals that he could bring, especially as a number 5 starter. So I think good job by the Royals to make the right decision here. And I'm excited to see what Marsh can do. Excited to see if he has some nice pitch to show off, some nice potential. So overall, I think this is a great decision by the Royals. And again, I'm always of the fact of getting younger guys involved and seeing what they can do. Again, if they're bad, they're bad. If they're great, you have a building piece for the future. A minor trade here. The Rays acquired pitcher Joe Rock, an amazing name, by the way. I want to get that out. Joe Rock, that's an incredible name. For former first-round pick Greg Jones. Kind of a nothing trade here, but it was notable as Jones was a former first-round pick by the Rays. Obviously didn't work out there. We'll go to the Royals, have a lot less. Go to the Rockies, sorry. If I said Royals before, I meant Rockies for this trade. So I think good job for Greg Jones having less eyes on him now, going to a bad Rockies team, trying to figure out his career there, seeing if he can do anything. A trade of this magnitude worked out well for the Guardians. Worked out well with them last year, trading for Nolan Jones of the Guardians, who's turned out to be a very nice piece for them. The Rays adding more pitching depth is nice. Joe Rock is a guy who hasn't done that well in minor leagues, but is close to the major leagues, and the Rays probably see something in him with one of his pitches or something like that he can be an impactful pitcher. The Rays always know what they're doing, and they need pitching depth right now because of all the pitching injuries they have with guys like Shane McClanahan, Jeffrey Springs. So I think it was a nice job by them, and nice trade by both teams, I think. Jonathan Aranda is having surgery for a broken finger and is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Not great news for the Rays. Another Rays middle infielder that was going to be a big part of their depth that is now going to miss some time. Of course, the middle infield situation there was a little bit of a question mark because of the Wander Franco situation and the other guys they've lost there in the middle infield. You're relying on guys like Jose Caballero, Ahmed Rosario, Taylor Walls to be big-time performers. So I don't think losing Aranda is great, but I don't think it should be that big of a deal. He's more of a depth guy, but still, you don't want to lose another bat anyways. So I think it's definitely not a great sign, but it could have been a lot worse. Edwin Arroyo, going to the Reds now here, is having season-ending shoulder surgery, which is not good news for the Reds at all. Have lost a lot of middle infielders recently. They just lost Matt McClain to injury, and he is going to be out for a little bit. Shouldn't be that major, but still, you don't want the season starting off like that. You had, Novelli Marte, who got suspended for PEDs, who is slotting in to be a big part of their middle infield. So I think you have still a lot of depth there, including guys that you signed Heimer Candelario, who should be the everyday third baseman. Of course, you have Ellie De La Cruz. You have Jonathan India, who can play and fill in. So I think it's not a huge deal for the Reds, but again, you never want to lose depth, especially for a position where you are kind of having a little less now because of injuries. So I think that is something that is a negative. But going into it now, they did make a trade to kind of improve that in getting Santiago Espinal from the Blue Jays. Espinal is a former All-Star who I think is a really nice bench piece for the Reds here. This is a guy who can fill in at second and third, maybe even short from time to time, brings a nice glove, brings good contact against lefties, isn't bad against righties as well. I think overall is a great depth move for the Reds, and losing middle infielders like McLean, like Arroyo, like Marte for some extended amount of time for the latter two. McLean, of course, shouldn't be that big of a deal. So I think it was a great move by them to acquire Espinal, and I think really good job by them to see a need and get it. Last but not least, we are going to be talking about Jordan Montgomery. According to John Heyman of the New York Post, the Yankees have reopened contract talks with him, and this potentially open for a deal. I still don't think Montgomery ends up with the Yankees. I just don't think the Yankees have the money for it. I think Montgomery would love to sign there. I just don't think the Yankees have the money for it. I think Montgomery's just trying to get every single option he can now with the Rangers officially being off the board for his services with the signing of Michael Lorenzen. So I think it's kind of more Montgomery and Boris trying to find any team at all that'll want him. So I wouldn't look too deep into this. It also could just be Boris telling Heyman some false information and get his market brewing again, but I'm not gonna sit here and say that. So I don't think this is that big of a deal. I don't think Montgomery ends up with the Yankees, so I don't think this is a huge thing to watch, but it still was notable, and it still was something interesting that was happening with baseball, and some contract talks and some free agency news, which I always love to talk about. Always love free agency. So all right, that's the end of our show here today. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to follow us anywhere you can get content and updates: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, also all the other social medias, just anywhere you can get content and updates. Thank you so much. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a positive review. Anything like that really helps the show. So thank you so much. Have a great day. Tomorrow I'll have a guest speaker on the show, one of the other podcast hosts. We'll be talking about some really exciting topics there. So excited for that. Definitely tune in. Same time as always, 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern time. So thank you so much for that, and we'll see you then. And we'll see if baseball throws at us tomorrow. Goodbye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go